Discover the incredible transformation, how a lawyer's gift revealed hidden truths this Christmas. Sarah sat at her desk, the soft glow of her computer screen illuminating the piles of case files stacked haphazardly around her. Outside, the holiday lights twinkled along Main Street, spreading cheer amidst the bitter chill. But for Sarah, the festive ambience felt like a cruel joke. Despite her position at Whitman and Associates, the legacy of her late father loomed larger than her aspirations. He had been a titan in the courtroom, revered by the very community she now strived to serve. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was merely living in his shadow, drowning beneath expectations that felt heavier every year. An unexpected knock broke her reverie, and her mentor, Jack, entered with an unusual glint in his eye. He held out a small velvet box. "I thought you might like this," he said, his voice rich with nostalgia. As she opened it, the sight of the family crest pendant took her aback. It belonged to a distant relative, someone who faced their own struggles. His words carried weight, hinting at a story buried in her family's past. Curiosity stirred within her, momentarily distracting her from the spiral of unpaid bills and unyielding demands. But as she donned the pendant, the chill of her reality returned. Questions swirled in her mind. Was it possible that this item could connect her to a noble lineage, or was it a reminder of a tarnished legacy? The penetrating gaze of the pendant felt like a challenge, urging her to dig deeper. At her family's dinner table, stories had floated like phantoms, whispers of scandal and business failures that haunted her bloodline. The thought of uncovering those long-buried truths both thrilled and terrified her. Before she could fully process her thoughts, a moral dilemma murmured beneath the surface. If she unraveled these truths, would she be seeking justice for the lives her grandfather had touched, or would she be igniting a fire that could consume her family's name? The ethical bind tugged at her heart. Each tick of the clock echoed impatience while documenting her suffering, her dreams shackled by the weight of her lineage. How far could she go to reclaim her family's dignity without risking everything she had? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Just as she gathered the courage to begin her investigation, news struck like lightning. Her firm was implicated in a similar scandal, one that revived memories of her grandfather's misdeeds. The betrayal cut deeper than she could put into words. It felt as if her career was crumbling around her. Would she be forced to choose between defending her family's pride and pursuing the truth? Heart pounding, breath uneven, she stood at a precipice. The walls were closing in, her mind racing to process the implications of what lay ahead. As the town outside resolved into a vision of joy and celebration, Sarah felt the tightening grip of despair. And at that moment, her phone rang, blaring into the tension like an unexpected thunderclap. An unknown number flashed across the screen, and her instincts screamed for her to answer. Had she finally uncovered evidence to dismantle the corporation? Or would this call bring yet another layer of complexity, deepening the chasm of her internal war? The choice loomed before her, fraught with uncertainty, as all that she valued hung in the balance. With trembling hands, Sarah swiped to answer the call, her heart racing. "Hello?" she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "Is this Sarah Whitman?" The voice on the other end was authoritative yet cautious. It belonged to a private investigator named Paul Darnell, someone her firm had previously consulted about another matter, but had since brushed aside. "Yes, it is. What do you have?" She leaned against her desk, eyes darting to the window, where snowflakes began to drift, blanketing any traces of the turmoil within her. "I can't discuss specifics over the phone, but I have information related to the situation at Whitman and Associates," Paul responded, his tone measured. "It's best if we meet." The tension twisted in Sarah's gut like a serrated knife. Intrigued yet hesitant, she glanced at the stacks of files around her. The pressure to uphold her family's reputation weighed heavily on her shoulders. "Where?" "Meet me at the coffee house in an hour. I'll text you the address." As the call ended, Sarah's mind spun like a whirlwind. This could be the lead she desperately needed to make informed decisions in the swirling chaos enveloping her life. A whispered intrigue lingered in the corners of her thoughts. Perhaps unearthing the truth could elevate her and distance her from her father's tarnished legacy. Or, she realized with a chilling clarity, it could tear her family apart. With a deep breath, she pulled herself back into focus. This was a moment that could serve as a catalyst for change in both her personal and professional life. The thought of that pendant, its promise of ancestry mingled with shame, lit a fire within her. What had once felt like a burden could become the torch guiding her through the darkness. It wasn't just about her grandiose dreams of being a great lawyer like her father. It was now personal justice, a quest to redefine her own narrative against the shadows of her lineage. She quickly organized her office, separating her family's historical case documents from her current ones, determination bolstering her resolve. In that moment, she wasn't just processing the implications of the call, she was crafting a strategy. Arriving at the coffee shop, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee offered a comfort that felt almost surreal. Paul was seated at a corner booth, his fingers drumming lightly against the tabletop. As she slid into the seat across from him, she studied his expression, trying to decipher the weight behind his guarded demeanor. "What do you have for me?" Sarah asked, her voice steady, the embodiment of her resolve. She was no longer a mere apprentice to her father's legacy. She was stepping into her own. Paul glanced around, ensuring their conversation would remain private. "I've been following leads related to the firm's current scandal, and I've uncovered some discrepancies that may point to deeper issues that connect back to your grandfather's dealings." The implications settled heavily but enticingly in the air. A cascade of thoughts raced through Sarah's mind. If she were to confront these revelations head-on, could it lead to empowerment rather than disgrace? Would she finally learn the truths that had long eluded her? As Paul began to detail his findings, Sarah felt a transformational clarity unfold within her, igniting a fire to fight back against the fate that felt preordained. Each corrupt transaction linked to her grandfather painted a picture of recklessness, but also an urgent opportunity to reclaim her narrative, her legal career, her identity. But deep down, a flicker of fear reminded her of the precarious line she walked. Would uncovering these truths ultimately liberate her, or would it bind her to the sins of her past? Amidst her swirling thoughts, Paul's next words brought her crashing back into focus, igniting both dread and anticipation. "You need to understand, Sarah, this isn't just a story about your grandfather. It involves people connected to the firm today." The implications darkened the world outside the coffee shop, wrapping Sarah in a fog of uncertainty. The stakes had risen. The risk of dismantling her family's legacy now felt more imminent than ever. With shadows of doubt creeping in, she felt that the time had come to face the realities that had long lain dormant. Could she rise from the ashes of her lineage and forge a new path, or was she destined to become the very thing she loathed? As the conversation continued, she braced herself for the choices ahead, aware that sometimes discovery can be a double-edged sword. With every detail Paul presented, Sarah's heart raced faster. Her mind was a cacophony of ambition, dread, and urgency, strung tightly across a taut line of possibility. As he spoke, she began to grasp the enormity of his revelations. Each name he dropped was a thread in a web of intrigue that might culminate in a new understanding of her family's history. More than a mere scandal, this was a labyrinth exposing the very foundation of her heritage. Your grandfather's business practices weren't just reckless, they were illegal. The depth of deception runs deeper than you might imagine, Paul explained, his voice steady but serious. Then why didn't anyone do anything about it? Sarah felt a surge of indignation rise within her, driven by the implications of a generational failure to act. If this had all been documented, how did he remain untouchable? Because, like many, the people he was tied to were protected by power. They lived in shadows and whispered them away, he replied, leaning in. But you, Sarah, have a chance to bring the truth to light. You could change everything. She felt the weight of responsibility settle upon her, exhilarating yet daunting. This wasn't just about pieces on a chessboard. This was her family, every triumphant legacy tainted with deceit. Suddenly, her ambitions seemed larger than a mere continuation of her father's work. They carried the potential for justice that could ripple through generations, reshaping their identity. But with each passing moment, fear lingered. The image of her family name screamed in her thoughts, as if warning her against the path of betrayal. She questioned the legacy she had always imagined crafting. Was its foundation worth preserving when built upon lies? What would I even do next? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper, vulnerability creeping into her otherwise iron resolve. We need to gather evidence. The connections are still active, and if we can expose them... Expose them? She interrupted, leaning closer, her determination hardening into steel. You mean to erase the legacy? It's not about erasing, it's about rebuilding. You could start from the truth, Paul said, his eyes locked onto hers with a fierce intensity. But that requires courage. It requires you to confront your family, the partners involved, and risk everything you've known. With those words, Sarah found her inner deliberation confronted with a stark ultimatum. Who was she, really? The answer felt like a revelation wrapped in a blanket of chaos. If she chose this path, it wouldn't be about warping her legacy, but rather redefining what it meant to hold her family name. That sparked a new fire within her. She envisioned a manifestation of change, a chance to be not just an attorney, but a force for genuine justice. As she absorbed this fresh perspective, another thought danced at the edges of her mind. A fire laid dormant could easily turn into a conflagration, one that would test her integrity at every turn. Okay, Sarah finally said, her resolve firming. Let's expose the truth. Let's unravel this web. But I'm not doing it just for the sake of my family. I need a clear purpose to protect those who suffered because of it. Paul nodded, impressed. That's the spirit. It will be risky, but with risks come rewards. Determined to set a new course, she felt an imperative tug inside her, a complex intermingling of fear and excitement. As they discussed strategies, Sarah could practically taste the freedom that honesty might bring, both for her family and her own soul. Yet, just as her resolve solidified, a disturbing thought surfaced. It was one thing to pull at the threads of her family's past. It was quite another to consider the ramifications for her present. Could she withstand the inevitable backlash? Would she find herself alone in this fight? That uncertainty loomed large as their conversation wound down. Just as she was about to voice her concerns, Paul generated a new line of thought. You might need protection. Powerful interests will retaliate when this comes to light, and you'll likely become a target. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. This was no longer an investigation. It was a war on shadows, a battle against the very people she might have to rely on at her firm. Suddenly, forging ahead didn't seem like an option, but a necessity she could not back out of. "Who can I trust?" she murmured, caught in the dual shadows of ambition and fear. Paul leaned back in his seat, eyes narrowing in consideration, then replied, "You'll need allies. Names may need to be kept close, but I have a few in mind." As he began to list them, Sarah couldn't shake the unsettling notion that trust might be the rarest commodity in this newfound journey, one laden with ghosts of the past, resistance from the present, and a future still hazy and uncertain. With her heart racing against the tide of fear, Sarah knew she was at the precipice of transformation. Would she truly step into a role capable of forging a new identity? And more importantly, could she handle what she would discover about herself along the way? The stage was set, but the next act held grim prospects shrouded in shadows. As dawn broke on the horizon, Sarah's mind spun in a whirlwind of thoughts, each one more relentless than the last. The morning light filtered through her apartment's sheer curtains, illuminating the stacks of legal files piled on her desk, a jumbled reflection of her chaotic thoughts. Today would not be an ordinary day at work. It marked the beginning of a journey that could alter the course of her life and the legacy of her family. Discomfort simmered beneath her skin, not just from the task at hand, but from the realization that nothing would be the same after today. As she sipped her coffee, its warmth did little to quell the chill of anxiety that fluttered in her stomach. She needed a plan, a clear approach if she hoped to protect those harmed by her grandfather's actions and unveil the truth lurking in shadows. Compiling her notes, Sarah turned her attention to the digital file Paul had sent, a collection of names and documents tied to her grandfather's business dealings. Each name felt like a potential ally or adversary, threading through the tapestry of her family's history. Despite the fear creeping in, a flicker of determination ignited her spirit. Knowing she would face resistance, Sarah focused on the allies Paul had suggested. The thought of reaching out to them both excited and terrified her. Could she trust these individuals? What if they had motives that didn't align with her own? They were all intertwined with the dark web she sought to unravel, but without them, she'd be taking on the entire burden alone. Her phone buzzed, jolting her from her thoughts. It was a message from Paul reminding her about their meeting later that day. She had another task, researching legislative loopholes exploited by her grandfather. This was as much about justice as it was a personal vendetta against the legacy of deceit. Glancing at her reflection in the window, Sarah scrutinized her resolve. The woman staring back had to embody the change she sought. Confidence had to be her armor. "Focus," she murmured to herself. "You're not just fighting for your family's name, you're fighting for those who suffered." With renewed energy, she dove into her work. Hours slipped away as she meticulously analyzed cases related to her family's past, feeling the tension between her role as an attorney and her pursuit of justice. She discovered glaring discrepancies, names recurring in transactions that hinted at systemic corruption. Her heart raced every time she unearthed a connection, a new piece of the puzzle leading to a potential breakthrough. However, every revelation also unearthed deeper concerns. Was she opening Pandora's box, unleashing chaos that might engulf her? The idea gnawed at her, but fighting this battle meant confronting the very foundation of her reality. This path urged her to evolve, morally, personally, and professionally. Suddenly, her phone rang, cutting through her thoughts. The caller ID flickered, one of the allies Paul mentioned. Her breath hitched, uncertainty momentarily eclipsing her resolve. Pressing the accept button, she felt the weight of the moment swell. "Hello?" "Sarah, it's Lucas. I know why you're calling." His voice was calm yet steely, imbued with a sense of foreboding. "This isn't going to be easy. Are you sure you're ready for what comes next?" "I am," she replied, surprising herself with the steadiness of her voice. "I want to push this forward. I have to." Lucas chuckled softly, but she sensed a gravity in his tone. "Courage is one thing, strategy is another. We'll need to tread carefully. If we expose this, we'll have powerful enemies. I hope you're prepared to face them." The enormity of Lucas's words sank into her thoughts like a stone tossed into a pond, sending ripples of uncertainty flaring outward. What would it mean to confront those enemies? Who were they, really? Would her journey for truth compromise her very identity? As they strategized, Sarah knew one thing crystal clear. She could not waver now. This was more than an exposé, more than a fight for justice. It was a challenge that demanded every ounce of her grit. With each name she encountered blinking on her screen, she felt the tugging complexity of her newfound purpose. Determination coursed through her veins. The choice had been made. She would not shy away from the confrontation. Suddenly, the echoes of doubt were drowned out by a fierce mantra building within her. "This is your truth to claim." As the call ended and Sarah resumed her work, she paused to consider the path ahead, the imminent confrontations, the potential backlash, and the shadows of powerful figures. Yet, just as she felt solid ground beneath her, another unsettling thought surfaced. Was she truly ready to unearth all this? What hidden truths could she uncover that might shatter her understanding of not just her grandfather, but of her entire family's legacy? With that weight heavy on her shoulders, Sarah sat in silence, an electric mixture of trepidation and anticipation swirling within her. The moment of choice had arrived. Would she own the truth when it was laid bare before her, or would she falter under the weight of that legacy? As she prepared for what lay ahead, the first thread of doubt began to unravel as shadows loomed ever closer, reminding her that the real battle was just beginning. Sarah exhaled slowly, the sound almost lost amidst the cacophony of her racing thoughts. Her desk, once a mere collection of legal documents, now embodied her fervent mission, a battleground on which she would confront both her past and her future. Taking a moment to center herself, she reached for the highlighter and began to mark essential passages in the legal text sprawled before her. With each stroke, she felt as though she was funneling her determination into those pages, solidifying her resolve to delve deeper into the murky waters of her grandfather's dealings. The sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating dust motes that danced like ghostly whispers of the legacy she was about to uncover. There was nothing innocent about this inquiry. It felt like a permission slip to pierce the veil of her family's history, to bring light to all the secrets scuttled away in dark corners. The call with Lucas had stirred a storm of emotions in her. As she prepared for their meeting, trepidation simmered once more beneath her confidence. She couldn't shake the conviction that confronting her family would entail far more than courtroom strategy. It demanded an evaluation of herself, her values, her beliefs, her identity. What if the answer she sought reshaped everything she thought she knew? Driven by curiosity and a sense of impending resolve, Sarah arranged the documents methodically. The errors in financial statements and the obscure connections between various names told a story, one she was determined to expose. She had always been diligent in her work, but now every investigative click of the keyboard felt like a pulse igniting her to action. The stakes weren't just professional, they were personal. As the hours passed, she noticed a distinct change in her outlook. Anxiety mutated into focus. Doubts rounded into a steely determination. She remembered a lesson from law school. Justice requires courage, but change requires vision. This resonated deeply. She began to visualize the bigger picture, the lives influenced by her familial legacy, shifting from victim to warrior. Her concentration was disrupted by the soft trill of incoming messages. With each ping, a new name or a line of inquiry awaited. Potential allies and adversaries unfolding through the digital matrix. She paused to reflect. Why had she previously felt that these connections intimidated her? Now they felt like threads, weaving her into a larger narrative. As her finger hovered over the contacts, she mentally rehearsed her approach. Each conversation would be steeped in the weight of her discovery, a discovery that demanded she not only ask for help, but also bear the burden of accountability for the past. "Are you ready for what comes next?" Lucas's voice echoed in her mind, his confidence stirring doubt, but also clarity. After steeling her nerves, she pulled up her contacts and initiated a video call with one of the allies, someone well-versed in corporate malfeasance. As the screen lit up and the connection established, she felt a surge of adrenaline course through her. "Hi, Sarah. I've been briefed on your situation. Where do we start?" The man's authoritative demeanor made her pulse quicken. "We need to dissect the financial networks behind my grandfather's practices," she stated, her voice cracking slightly but holding firm. "I suspect there are illicit activities tied to these names." "Let's dig in," he replied, his expression shifting from casual to serious. As they delved into the intricacies of contracts and financial records, Sarah's belief in her capabilities burgeoned. The more she discussed her findings, the more adept she became at making connections, illuminating not only the documents, but also her potential as an attorney. This was her territory now. She was no longer just an heiress tangled in a murky legacy. She was actively sculpting a new path. But just as she felt the thrill of progress, a grim thought threaded through her mind. What if she inherited more than her grandfather's name? As she scrutinized the patterns before her, she pondered the implications of the truth she was piecing together. Would she become what she fought against? The deeper she went, the louder the inner conflict roared. As they wrapped up the session, her resolve felt palpable, yet foreboding. She began drafting an outline of her inquiries, with a clear distinction between emotional desires and practical needs. As she connected with another ally later that morning, a seasoned journalist, her confidence grew. This individual had a reputation for uncovering corruption and navigating the complexities of high-stakes societal dynamics. Together, they began forming a plan to unveil the situation, targeting key figures who could lead to tangible evidence. Sarah found her analytical mind spinning with questions, specific questions that demanded direct answers. "Your grandfather wasn't operating alone. The patterns you see are deliberate," the journalist asserted, her eyes narrowing as she skimmed through the documents. "We need to confront these players individually, twist their connections open like a can. If we play our cards right, we can force their hand." "Force their hand," Sarah murmured, the phrase igniting a latent spark within her. The thought of confronting adversaries shifted her perspective, activating a competitive spirit she hadn't fully acknowledged before. This was not just about restoring her pride, it was about justice, societal impact, and redemption. The active pursuit demanded she hone her toolbox more finely, aligning her legal skills with the journalistic inquiry. Every interaction would be an opportunity to assert herself, to reclaim control not only over her family's narrative, but also her own legacy. What if revealing all this not only exposes the truth, but also implicates me? She questioned, biting her lip, as the weight of her transformation cast shadows of doubt. Could her own history become a part of the exposition? What would client confidentiality dictate if family ties began to unravel under scrutiny? Her thoughts spiraled, but amid anxiety was a fierce resolve. Clarity emerged from the chaos. Her transformation was inevitable, just as exposing the hidden truths seemed a responsibility she could not shy away from. It would demand her whole self, a complete recalibration of what she believed and who she was set to become in the aftermath. As she delved deeper into the investigations, preparing herself to confront the living pieces of her family's jigsaw puzzle, a surge of motivation brimmed within her. She recognized her skills in persuasion, articulation, and legal acumen ignited by necessity. A reality dawned. This mission was also a revelation of her identity. Time was of the essence, revealing her commitment. The tension thickened, the threshold between her past and future widened as the minutes slipped by. This journey toward the truth was riddled with potential minefields, yet the prospect of emerging transformed was not merely enticing, it was necessary. Moments later, as she prepared to confront her family with the insights she had gathered, her determination solidified into an unwavering conviction. All roads now led to the confrontation she had long dreaded but knew she must face. As she stood at the doorway of revelation, one question reverberated in her mind. Could she face the truth of who her family truly was? Or would the consequences unravel everything she held dear? Driven by the hunger for justice, Sarah stepped forward, ready for whatever awaited her. The moment of truth loomed ever closer, a reckoning that promised to reshape not just her path, but the legacy she sought to reclaim. The air hung thick with anticipation as Sarah stood at the threshold of her family's estate. The mansion loomed large before her, a fortress of secrets and betrayals, and for a fleeting moment her heart raced with a cocktail of fear and determination. This was not merely a confrontation, it was a reckoning, both for her family and herself. Taking a deep breath, she adjusted her blazer, a shield that had become familiar yet empowering in its tailored structure. It was vital she present herself not just as the granddaughter of the man she was investigating, but as a formidable legal mind ready to pursue the truth. The click of her heels resonated like a warning through the grand hallways, announcing her presence even before she spoke. As she crossed the threshold into the sitting room, a wave of nostalgia washed over her. Happy memories of laughter and warmth mingled with a potent sense of betrayal that pierced every recollection. Her family was gathered, their expressions shifting from warm welcomes to uncertain glances as they noticed the steely resolve in her demeanor. "Sarah, what a surprise!" her mother exclaimed, clearly masking her discomfort behind a smile. "We were just about to have lunch." Feeling the tension spike, Sarah knew the time for pleasantries had passed. "I need to talk to everyone. It's important." Silence settled like an unwelcome guest. All eyes turned towards her, curiosity mingling with trepidation. This was the moment she had prepared for. "About Grandpa's business dealings," she started, her voice steady, though internally her pulse quickened. "I've done some research, and things are not what they seem." The startled reactions of her family mirrored the tumult of emotions roiling inside her. She could sense the underlying dread, the anticipation of confrontation. But even as the atmosphere crackled with unspoken fears, Sarah felt an unexpected surge of empowerment. Here she was, armed with knowledge and an unwavering commitment to justice. "Sarah, that's your grandfather's legacy. We shouldn't disturb that." Her uncle interrupted, a sharp edge to his tone. "Is it a legacy built on deceit?" she countered, her voice sharper than she intended. The look of shock that flashed across his face made her question her approach, but she pressed on, determined not to back down. "You all deserve to know the truth. I deserve to know it. The foundation of our family is crumbling under the weight of lies." Her mother's eyes softened, a flicker of recognition breaking through. "But what if this tears us apart?" A heavy silence lay upon them, thick with the weight of what they all knew but were afraid to acknowledge. It was then Sarah realized the other side of this confrontation. Her relatives were grappling with their own sense of loyalty and betrayal, a dichotomy that mirrored her inner turmoil. As they whispered among themselves, Sarah seized the moment to reflect on the uncomfortable position she found herself in. If she pressed too hard, she risked losing the very relationships she sought to protect. Yet if she faltered, her mission would flounder. The internal conflict manifested physically. Sarah clenched her fists, feeling the concentrated energy of her resolve. I can't walk away from this. I won't. We have to confront what's hiding in the shadows of this family, she stated, her voice unwavering. In that moment, she uncorked a truth far more significant than just deceit. She was unearthing the intricacies of her identity, facing the possibility that to pursue justice, bonds may need to be severed. Then, as her family grappled with her words, a sharp voice interrupted. "So you think you're some kind of detective now?" It was her brother, eyes narrowing with a mix of disbelief and concern. "You might find more than you bargained for." His challenge struck a chord, provoking a rush of adrenaline through her veins. "Then let's find out," Sarah declared, locking eyes with him. With the stakes now raised, she felt the resolve deepen within her, a realization that while confronting her family and their secrets was a daunting task, it was about more than just exposing the past. It was about reclaiming her narrative and establishing her place in a family riddled with complexity. The confrontation had only just begun, and as uncertainties loomed, she questioned if she had the fortitude to navigate the revelations waiting just beneath the surface. With the tensions in the room electrified and her family's true colors threatening to spill forth, Sarah braced herself for the unforeseen consequences of her conviction. The question now remained, how far was she willing to go to uncover the truth, and what hidden truths still lay within her own heart? The weight of her brother's challenge hung in the air like a pendulum swinging, rhythmically counting down the seconds until the tension reached a breaking point. Sarah locked her gaze onto him, feeling a rush of determination surge through her, a resolve to own her narrative, to finally wrestle control from the ghosts of her family's past. "Why would you assume I'm not capable of handling the truth?" she shot back, her voice steady, masking the tremors of insecurity that pulsed beneath the surface. Beneath his skepticism, she sensed an underlying fear mirrored in the expressions of her loved ones. "Because digging for answers sometimes uncovers scars better left unexamined," he replied, crossing his arms defensively. But Sarah was no longer willing to remain within the boundaries set by family loyalties that felt more like chains than bonds. She could feel her mind racing, strategizing, weighing her next steps. This wasn't merely about confronting family secrets. It was about carving out her own identity amidst a legacy weighed down by unresolved issues. "I refuse to ignore what might be hidden just because it's uncomfortable," Sarah said, her heart pounding in her chest as she took a few steps deeper into the room, daring to take command of the space. The eyes of her family followed her, a mix of admiration and disbelief swirling in their expressions. Perhaps they were beginning to recognize that she was transforming right before their eyes, evolving from a silent observer to an active participant in her family's story. As she naturally took center stage, the stillness settled again, punctuated only by the crackling of the fire. The atmosphere shifted, the family almost unconsciously leaning into her burgeoning confidence. "We can't keep dancing around these issues. You speak of legacy, but isn't a legacy built on deception a hollow foundation?" Her uncle shifted uncomfortably, as if the shadows of their past were pressing in on him. "What are you proposing exactly?" "I'm proposing we delve deeper, dig through those ledgers, examine the contracts, and confront the people involved. It's not just about Grandpa anymore. It's about us and the power we hold to dictate our future," Sarah declared, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. The gravity of her words hung in the air. This time, it wasn't just an internal battle, but an invitation to her family to join her in her quest for truth, a path fraught with peril, but ultimately liberating. "Do you think you can just waltz in here and demand everyone change?" her brother retorted, his protective instincts kicking in, yet beneath his bravado, she detected a hint of vulnerability. "I'm not demanding change. I'm advocating for clarity. You call it waltzing. I call it stepping into my power, one that's been dormant for too long." The ferocity of her tone took some of her family aback. But as they exchanged looks, she saw something shift, an acknowledgement that they might need to reevaluate their own complacency in Uncle Sam's pervasive influence over the family narrative. Suddenly, a thought struck Sarah. If they were to pursue this together, would they recognize her commitment and persistence, or would they cling to the facade of innocence they had built around their grandfather's name? Either way, she would need allies, and this might prove to be a test of their true loyalties. "Let's split the tasks," she suggested, her mind racing with excitement and palpable anxiety. "We each tackle a different aspect. Your experience with the family business might shine light on what's been buried. And Mom, you probably have insights into his character we all miss." "No one wants to rip our family apart, Sarah," her mother cautioned, her voice a tremor of both fear and hope. "I don't want to tear us apart either, but if we keep pretending, we stand to lose even more," Sarah replied, conviction overshadowing doubt. Her heart swelled with a combination of dread and exhilaration at what lay ahead. Each unturned stone opened a new door, but Sarah knew she needed to be on guard. The need for self-preservation and moral clarity would clash with hidden family unrest waiting to be awakened. With a suggestion on the table, Sarah braced herself for the reactions, holding the collective breath of her family in her hands. Little did she know, the resistance that awaited went beyond mere disputes. It danced on a knife's edge of suppressed truths. The room pulsed with uncertainty, leaving Sarah dangling on the precipice of revelation and conflict. What she didn't realize was that making this choice would set into motion events that would challenge not only her family's past, but also her very understanding of trust. As the conversations around the table began to shift, Sarah's stomach knotted in exhilaration and anxiety. Was she ready for whatever lay beneath these ages-old secrets? Would the journey of discovery, fraught with relational tensions, finally forge a stronger connection within the family, or would it tear them apart completely? The question remained. As they embarked on this treacherous investigation together, who would emerge unscathed, and what new implications would surface that would redefine their very existence? The sharpness of silence that enveloped the room was quickly contrasted by the muffled whispers orbiting around Sarah's proposition. Each member of her family seemed lost in their own thoughts, wrestling with the idea of diving into previously guarded waters. As the minutes ticked away, Sarah's heart drummed louder in her chest. She could hear perspectives clashing, even if words remained unspoken. With each passing second, her anticipation surged. She had ignited the first spark, but the next steps required a delicate choreography of vulnerability and strength. "Let's start with the business," her brother finally uttered, breaking the stifling tension. "If we can find something shady there, it might lead us to answers." That was a turning point, the initial crack in the family's adherence to silence. The concept of digging not only became a tangible task, but a shared endeavor. Sarah couldn't dismiss the flicker of pride that warmed her, a mix of gratitude and astonishment. For too long, the family had shrouded itself in a veneer of normalcy, yet here they were, teetering on the edge of a revelation. "Agreed," she said, steadying her voice. "Let's commit, but I also think we should set ground rules to ensure it doesn't get personal. We're here for the truth, not blame." Her uncle bristled at her words, a defense mechanism kicking in at the thought of accountability. But there was a shift beneath the surface, as if he recognized the potential for catharsis. "That's wise, Sarah," he replied slowly. But I won't lie to you, some discoveries might be hurtful. Are you prepared for that? The weight of his questions settled like a stone in her stomach. She had steeled herself for confrontation, but emotional fallout would be another realm altogether. I won't turn back now, she confessed, the sincerity lacing her words, grounding her resolve. In the days that followed, Sarah delineated tasks meticulously, careful that each person felt included yet challenged. She discovered her own proficiency for organization, an unexpected skill that cast her in a leadership role amongst her family. Accompanying spreadsheets and thorough outlines emerged, transforming her initially wrought anxiety into a frenzy of productivity. Every piece of information they retrieved filled her with burgeoning pride, evolving her perception not just of the family secrets, but of her own capability to forge connections through structure. Yet, as they peeled back layers of their grandfather's dealings, the shadows of discontent quietly gathered. Over simple coffee meetings and late-night discussions, uncomfortable truths began to surface, unveiling patterns of manipulation that fostered both resentment and revelation. Sarah navigated these discoveries with the keen awareness of each family member's emotional state, careful to balance her pursuit of certainty with compassion. Still, as moral dilemmas flickered, she felt the facade of familial unity crack, opening doors she had not anticipated. One evening, while discussing a particularly dubious contract, tension flared when her mother challenged her interpretation. The room pulsated with accusation and defense, revealing hidden rivalries that had laid dormant. "We always assumed Grandpa acted with the best intentions, Sarah," her mother argued, her voice rising. "What if you're wrong?" The air thickened, an almost tangible force pushing against Sarah's resolve. Was she wrong? Could her pursuit of truth unravel the fabric of their family one thread at a time? The question gnawed at her, buried beneath layers of righteous belief. "Maybe we need to decide what's more important," she offered carefully, "the legacy of our grandfather or the legacy of truth, because it's not a choice I can make for anyone else." As the words left her mouth, she felt an unfamiliar sense of relinquishment wash over her. She had set the tone of the conversation and, in doing so, handed her family a choice. Still, the path forward held its own uncertainty. Would they embrace this journey, shattering the ties that held them in dysfunctional harmony, or would they retreat into the comfort of ignorance once more? That was the critical moment Sarah hadn't counted on, wherein her personal development hinged not solely on external discovery, but on navigating the internal struggles of those she loved. The thought lingered like a specter, refusing to vanish completely. What revelations lay ahead, entwined with the desire for a better legacy? What confrontations awaited as they shone light on past transgressions? The tension coiled tighter, hinting at tumultuous conflicts waiting to unravel. Sarah steeled herself for the truth still hidden in the shadows, unaware of just how deeply the quest for understanding would plunge her into the heart of her family's dynamics. Days turned into weeks as Sarah navigated the whirlwind of revelations, tension, and unearthing decades of secrets. The quest for truth was not only about settling scores or seeking justice. It became an exploration of self, family dynamics, and unexpected strengths. Each document analyzed, each conversation uttered, felt like chiseling away the layers that had shrouded her family's history. Choosing to confront the past demanded she engage with its complexities head-on and empower herself amidst it all. One crisp morning, Sarah sat at her desk, her laptop aglow with the fruits of her labor. Piles of legal documents were organized into sections, each narrating a story, some that revealed greed, others that harbored opportunities for restitution. A renewed sense of confidence coursed through her. She had transformed from a woman haunted by her grandfather's tarnished image to an effective advocate for the truth. She had crafted the ability to reference those intricate documents with authority, guiding her family through what once felt like an insurmountable labyrinth. Facing her family over the past few weeks had not been without its heartaches. Long-buried resentments surfaced like ghosts from the past, threatening to consume the fragile bond they had. But through every confrontation, a heated debate, an unexpected tear, or an uneasy silence, Sarah guided them forward with newfound strength, often acting as a mediator between the specter of their legacy and the reality of their present. Despite the emotional turmoil, the foundations of trust began to shift. On one particularly pivotal evening, they gathered in the living room to discuss the findings they'd uncovered. A few family members expressed regret for their hesitance to face the past earlier, sharing their epiphanies about their identities shaped by a narrative of denial. In true legal fashion, Sarah poured her heart into articulate discussion as she boldly shared what she had learned, not just about their grandfather, but about the effects of his legacy on each of them. Every secret we unveil isn't just a subtraction from our family's esteem, she stated, placing her hands firmly on the table. It's a step toward reconstructing our collective identity and learning to honor our truth rather than hide from it. Taking a deep breath, she sensed a profound shift in the room. Her uncle nodded, his guarded demeanor flickering like a candle about to ignite. Slowly, they began to articulate their feelings wrapped in the shadows, releasing little pieces of themselves that had felt silenced for years. As discussions evolved, the tone of their meetings sought reconciliation. Each family member was encouraged to share their apprehensions and hopes, stories that had long remained unshared. They wrestled with uncomfortable realizations, finding solace in understanding that they were not alone in this collective effort. The burdens of their grandfather's deeds had been divided among them, and together they could find the strength to defy it. It was a tangible representation of growth. What began as a personal quest for justice shifted to a unified commitment to honor their past meaningfully. The challenge of doing so was daunting, but slowly, the comprehension that resolving these issues would fortify their family emerged as a shared belief. And on one acclaimed evening, as the sun cast a soft golden hue against the horizon, Sarah faced her family once more with a plan. Once merely theoretical, now forged into an achievable reality. We should present our findings, she proposed, her voice cutting through the stillness. Our family can't afford to remain enshrouded in deceit. We owe it to the people affected by Grandpa's actions to confront this fully, not just for ourselves, but for the integrity of those whose lives intersected with his legacy. The murmurs of agreement washed over her. They each admitted fear rattled through them at the thought of public scrutiny, yet accompanied that fear with an undeniable sense of duty. Sarah's belief intensified as she realized that while the road ahead wasn't devoid of obstacles, she too had shed the shackles of doubt. She was ready to confront whatever came next. Weeks later, standing before an audience of community leaders and citizens, Sarah shared not just the findings, but the story of her family's evolution. Her voice rang out like an anthem, intertwining their past with hope for the future. By exposing the truth, she articulated passionately, drawing strength from her family's presence, we reclaim our narrative, offering redemption that bridges the chasm between past misdeeds and present accountability. With each word, she felt the weight lifting from her shoulders. This was not merely a presentation, it was a declaration of independence from the legacy of shame. The atmosphere buzzed with recognition. Her family was no longer enveloped in shadows. They were engaging in a transformative process, confronting their history with courage. The applause, filled with warmth and respect, validated her efforts. As she stepped down, tears glimmered in her mother's eyes, pride evident in the embrace she offered. "I'm so proud of you," her mother assured, savoring the growth reflected in their connection. Sarah scanned the room, finding validation and kindness echoing back from the radiance of her family. What had begun as a burden became a cornerstone on which she built a fortified identity. A lawyer not simply tied to her ancestry, but one who could illuminate the truth despite the dark chapters of lineage. As they left the venue, Sarah felt the profound shift within herself. She had not only unveiled her family's history, stripping it bare of deceit, but had achieved recognition as a legal advocate, an empowered spirit, no longer bound by shadows, but illuminated by her tenacity and growth. This personal evolution solidified her belief. She was not just her grandfather's granddaughter. She was Sarah Whitman, a woman who faced her family's truths not to obliterate their name, but to redefine it, embodying strength and resilience that bridged the past with a brighter future. Now it is your moment to step into this journey with us. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm because it truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. You need to be part of this conversation. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear about overcoming obstacles and redefining themselves. Together, let's build this community of transformation.